Welcome to First. I'm Nichelle Poston along with Mark Eichman and Shirley Min. Abraham Lincoln was assassinated 151 years ago this month. A Wilmington author has found some little-known facts of that time to bring a new spin to history.
There's a new spin on the way to get more women involved in technology. Girl Develop It is the program. You'll learn about it this week on First.
And learn about the beauty of Mount Cuba in Delaware and how the DuPont family has put yet another spin on Delaware history. First, your public media news magazine starts now.
Friday, April 15th is the 151st anniversary of the assassination of Abraham Lincoln. There have been many stories written about that fateful day. So why would Wilmington writer Kathy Canavan want to add another chapter to the story? First Look reports the answer and offers a simple explanation. There are still untold stories out there. April 14, 1865, a seemingly ordinary spring day, but by day's end, President Abraham Lincoln, the 16th President of the United States, lay clinging to life, the victim of an assassin's bullet. He died the next morning.
I found newspaper accounts of that day, that weekend. Families were very kind to share their letters of their loved ones who were sitting in Ford's Theater when Booth killed the president, slashed Major Rathbone's arm as Major Rathbone tried to detain him, jumped from the box about 10, 12 feet to the stage, held this bloody knife above his head, shouted Sic Semper Tyrannis, and then ran off behind the scenery and skedaddled out down the alley, down Baptist Alley, on his horse and escaped.
That's the story many of us are familiar with, but author Kathy Canavan believed there were untold stories about that fateful night.
I'm a journalist, and one day I was working in Washington, D.C., and I had some downtime between assignments, so I revisited Peterson House. That's the house where President Lincoln actually died.
Fascinated with the happenings of the Peterson boarding house, Kathy set out on a 4-year mission researching and compiling witnesses' accounts in her book, Lincoln's Final Hours.
William Peterson, he was the owner of the house where President Lincoln died, and it was a great surprise to have the President of the United States carried unexpectedly into your house on a Friday night. But Mr. Peterson wasn't honored. He was a little bit sore. But Mr. Peterson, before the president was even buried, sent a bill to the federal government. He wanted 9 hours rent for the use of his home, and he wanted to be paid for every piece of linen soiled by the president's blood.
Then there's the story of what we today would call the paparazzi.
There were 2 photographers who lived upstairs at Peterson House. What they wanted to do was set up their camera to take a picture of the deathbed after the president was removed, because they knew it was a very historic photo. So they were able to get in through a back door. They set it up, they took it, they scurried out of there. So they had to keep it under wraps. Well, they kept it under wraps, and then their children kept it under wraps, then their grandchildren kept it under wraps. It finally surfaced in 1965 in England. One of their descendants sold it to raise money for her church.
Kathy really likes telling stories of ordinary people because as a child growing up in New Jersey, she thought numerous opportunities were missed by not interviewing everyday folk about the Lindbergh kidnapping.
There was a man who dug ditches in front of the Lindbergh house. There was a woman who owned a small hotel where all of the New York newsmen rented cots in the hallway. Well, all these people knew little slivers of history, and no one ever recorded it.
For 45 years, she's conducted interviews, first as a newspaper reporter and later as a freelance writer for various media outlets. But she says writing a book was much different.
I think it's interesting because I was never trained as a historian. I was trained as a journalist. So I did it in a journalistic way. And I started out thinking, well, if there's no book, there's at least a magazine article.
But best-selling author Ed Steers saw it as a book, so he offered to write the foreword and get it published. Kathy got lots of help from what she calls Play It Forward Lincoln experts, like Dr. Blaine Holmes, who minutes after meeting her offered to lend her one of those deathbed pictures taken by those two ingenious photographers. It's an experience Kathy will never forget.
When it came out, I saw it in a 9th Street bookstore here in Wilmington. But the first time I saw it was my husband and I went to Barnes & Noble on Concord Pike, as we do, and it was surreal.
Lincoln's Final Hours is full of new and interesting stories about the people and events surrounding President Lincoln's assassination.
Yeah, there really was a lot of stuff in there that I didn't even know. How does Kathy know that the stories that she's telling in this book are true?
Well, Mark, University Press of Kentucky, which published the book, is an academic publisher, and accuracy is very important to them. In fact, their editors verified all the accounts before publishing.
All right, thanks to Shell. And one other note before we wrap up the reporting on this story, we want to thank the University of Delaware's Lincoln Collection. It's a part of their Special Collections Department located in the Mark Samuels Lasner Collection at the University Library.
Coming up on First, the DuPont family has given Mount Cuba a special place in Delaware history. First and Delaware Today team up to explore that unique story and experience the diversity of Milford through a new mural project.
There's a new option in Delaware for women looking to improve their technology skills. The nonprofit group Girl Develop It is launching a chapter in Wilmington, offering everything from introductory to more advanced coding and web design classes. So let's bring in Todd Bookman, WHYY's innovations reporter and a member of the Pulse. Todd, tell us more about this.
Thanks, Shirley. This story comes at a time when the tech industry struggles to recruit enough skilled coders. Girl Develop It aims to train more women for a career in the traditionally male-dominated profession.
I typically just use standard post format.
Learning JavaScript or HTML code is like learning a new language. So to make the process something other than frustrating, Megan Anthony says the learning environment must be positive.
It's a super supportive community, so everyone's learning together, we're talking, we're all asking questions. I myself am not a coder, so I am learning too.
Anthony is co-leader of the Wilmington chapter for Girl Develop It, which began offering classes last October. The aim is to create a space where women can come, learn skills, and then go shake up the industry.
The more diverse your workforce can be, the better for everyone.
Men far outnumber women in technical jobs. At industry giants like Microsoft, Twitter, and Google, more than 80% of tech positions are held by males. Corinne Warnsice is CEO of Girl Develop It, which launched 5 years ago and is now active in 50 cities.
The tech industry as a whole is very male-dominated, and so what we like to do at Girl Develop It is create an environment that kind of subverts that. So it's really important to be among peers in a learning environment and feel like you can ask any question that might come up and not feel nervous about that, or not feel like you're asking a dumb question because you don't know some very basic things. So we just try to create an environment where women can thrive because they're in a company of their peers.
Antoinette Russom-Hain is attending Girl Develop It classes to gain experience and hopefully learn enough to begin doing some freelance web development. But she doesn't expect an easy road ahead.
Well, as an adult learner, you're going to be uncomfortable and a little frustrated when it doesn't click immediately. However, I have no problem asking questions here. They make you feel very comfortable about that. And as long as someone's there to explain it, I will make sure that I get the knowledge eventually.
She's able to keep coming back because the classes are reasonably priced. The sessions run about $10 an hour. That's a small down payment on a potentially lucrative career.
I have friends that have kids, and the kids don't know what they want to do with their lives, and they're going into college, and I'm telling all of them, just go into computer science.
Callie Morrissey has worked in and around tech, but never as a programmer writing code. She's thrilled to have access to local instructors.
I think it's a great opportunity, and it's so exciting that it's in Wilmington because usually you have to go to Philly for everything. So it's really awesome. Yeah.
Girl Develop It has plans to extend its reach into more American cities and also internationally over the next few years. Megan Anthony says she's excited to bring its motto, "Don't be shy," to more women.
I think women are intimidated by joining the tech field. So it's, don't be shy, leave that at the door, come here, be sassy, learn something. It's a lot of fun. So I like to snap when I think about it, like, girl, just develop it.
I should add that while Girl Develop It is geared around teaching women coding skills, the classes are open to all genders and identities. Everyone is simply asked to abide by a code of conduct that encourages participation and a welcoming environment.
Now, Todd, I know that Wilmington is not going to replace Silicon Valley or anything for tech jobs, but is there an opportunity for local employment here?
You look around the region and there definitely seems to be momentum. Co-working spaces are popping up like 1313 Innovation, which offers 3D printers and other tools. Zip Code Wilmington, which is like a coding boot camp, is now up and running. The website technically has a reporter stationed here. People I speak with have the sense that it's a region on the verge of having a real tech moment.
That's so cool. Thank you so much, Todd. And you can find Todd each Friday morning on The Pulse. Listen to it at 9 a.m. Friday and 10 a.m. on Sunday on WHYY FM 90.9.
A crowded field of candidates are in the running to unseat Wilmington Mayor Dennis Williams. Here to talk more about the campaign, editorial cartoonist Rob Torno. Thanks for joining us, Rob.
No sweat.
So in this cartoon, you've got the birds circling over a very weary Mayor Williams.
Right.
Do you really see him as vulnerable as a first-term incumbent?
Yeah, I think I do. There's a reason why all of these challengers are coming in. Cabrera just coming in. I think he has 7 challengers now. There might be more. They see a weak mayor. They see someone who's not, coming through on the promises he made. Crime's still an issue. Even people like former Mayor Baker have spoken publicly about how he seems weak, and that's why they're sort of, feeding frenzy at the moment.
And it does remind me a lot of the way the Republicans started out the presidential campaign with just 50 people running.
Right.
Does that hurt the individual challengers to Mayor Williams, that they're kind of pulling votes from each other versus the mayor who can kind of stand on his own?
It definitely does. It's like, not to compare Williams to Trump, but it's sort of a similar thing where his threshold for winning now is something like 1,400 votes. That's nothing. So he can kind of focus on his core constituents. He'll have sort of like the value of being an incumbent, and they're really going to have to try and rise above each other. I just don't see that happening. It's going to be very similar to the Republican Party.
So WHYY has hosted a debate with all the candidates except Mayor Williams and Maria Cabrera, who just got into the race. Mayor Williams didn't show up. Does that hurt him? Is that a smart move?
Politically, probably it is. He's got nothing to gain. It's in a district that, didn't support him too well, and he can kind of, again, focus on sort of the people that support him in a hardcore way, and he doesn't have to worry about sort of being, which is weird to say because he's the mayor of the entire city, but he can sort of get such a small niche. There's no value to him. He's going to have to debate at some point.
Eventually,
he can kind of pick and choose.
All right, well, we'll have to leave it there. Plenty more to come on the mayoral race. You can read more of Rob's work at newsworks.org/Delaware. Follow him on Twitter at Rob Torno.
Find First on the web at WHYY.org/first. Past shows are there now. And don't forget, sign up for our newsletter too. While you're online, check out a variety of WHYY local and PBS programs.
An 8th challenger to Wilmington Mayor Dennis Williams has entered the race. Maria Cabrera is on Wilmington City Council. She's the first woman and the first Latina to enter the race.
Some of the people running seem to have good ideas, but even if they were elected mayor, I don't believe that they have the background and experience to see them through. Others running have many connections and government backgrounds, but they lack the passion and the vision that our city needs. I am the only candidate that brings both of those qualities to the table.
That means a crowded stage for the next WHYY News Journal debate on April 21st. The moderator for that debate is Jason Levine, the editorial page editor of the News Journal, and he joins us on First. Welcome, Jason.
Thanks, Michelle. Good to be here.
Yeah, we're glad to have you. Let's start with the details. The next debate will be held at Howard Vocational Technical High School. That's a Thursday night. What else can you tell us?
It's going to focus on public safety, which I think of all of the 4 debates that we're co-hosting, I think this one's going to generate the most interest. It's not as big a hall, obviously, as the Grand, so seating is limited. Get your tickets now. It's going to be a very good discussion.
And the mayor will be there?
The mayor has said he will be there.
Okay. And so besides the great turnout for the first debate, we are expecting, would you say, a pretty big crowd?
I think especially because it's a smaller venue, I think it's going to be a sellout. Again, the smaller venue and the topic at hand.
Yeah, public safety.
This is, I think, public safety is the #1 concern of folks living, working, playing in Wilmington.
Okay. Questions. Let's remind everyone, how are we coming up with the questions for these debates?
Well, with this debate, what we're going to do, especially because it's so crowded, we're going to try to target questions toward the specific candidates. So to get the candidates talking about details, what their plans are for the city, and the mayor as well, we want to target questions specifically at them. And then hopefully that'll encourage some discussion, some back and forth. I think the first debate, while it went very well, the candidates said, you guys were a little easy on us. So we're not going to do that this time.
Oh, so they said we were easy on
That's
them.
right.
Okay. Well, let's talk about a story that came up in the News Journal not long ago, talking about the math of this race with so many candidates. What does that do?
Well, it's essentially kind of like running for a student body president at your high school now. You can win this race with about 1,300 votes based on what we've seen as far as turnout in recent Wilmington mayoral elections. The field is diluted, obviously, with 8 challengers and the incumbent. So it doesn't take much, and that's going to make it very interesting.
I guess works for the current mayor.
I think it works for anybody because, again, if you can get your district to turn out, you don't know which way the wind's going to blow. Anything can happen.
Okay. Well, Kevin Kelly was in the last race, but we have a pretty interesting group this time around. Would you say?
Yeah, it is interesting. It's interesting that there are no Republicans yet. We have an independent. We have folks who are, most folks in the race right now have some experience in city government, in government in general. I think Eugene Young is probably the outsider, if you might say that. But it's a dynamic field, but it's a crowded field. And so again, it's a toss-up right now.
Okay, well, thanks so much for being here. Jason Levine, the editorial page editor of the News Journal. We'll see you again on April 21st. But before then, go to DelawareOnline.com for tickets to the event. WHYY-TV will broadcast the event on Sunday, May 1st. You can watch the first debate at WHYY.org/first.
When most people think about Mount Cuba, a fancy DuPont garden comes to mind. But what most people don't know is that for years, Mount Cuba has quietly helped protect thousands of acres of untouched land to the tune of millions. We profile Mount Cuba Center together with our content partner, Delaware Today magazine. Based in the family home of the late Lamont DuPont Copeland and wife Pamela, the Mount Cuba Center strives to uphold the Copelands' vision for their estate.
She said, I want this to be a place where people will learn to appreciate our native plants and to see how these plants can enrich their lives so that they, in turn, will become conservators of our natural habitats.
Mount Cuba Center Executive Director Jeff Downing says the Copelands were kind of early environmentalists.
The Copelands' intention was simply to leverage this beautiful garden to use it to inspire people to then participate in conservation. So we are first and foremost a conservation organization that uses this garden to inspire and to educate.
Hoping to inspire and educate even more visitors, Mount Cuba is expanding its hours and opening the gardens for general admission.
It's an exquisite garden, and it's kind of a little bit of an unknown gem. Previously, people were largely only able to see the gardens by private tour. So we still have tours, but we also want to make the gardens available for just, casual visits.
Mount Cuba doesn't take its conservation mission lightly either.
Since 2005, we participated in about 20 different transactions helping other conservation organizations acquire open space and undeveloped land and preserve it.
Those transactions have helped preserve thousands of acres of land throughout the state, unbeknownst to many. One of those transactions, a $20 million grant to help the Conservation Fund acquire the Woodlawn Tract in 2012. The 1,100 acres along the Brandywine in northern Newcastle County and into PA is part of what's now the First State National Historic Park. More recently, Mount Cuba helped the Conservation Fund buy the 1,000-acre Taylor's Bridge Roberts Farm near Odessa and donate it to Delaware Wildlands. The site is considered one of the largest stretches of unprotected land remaining in Delaware's coastal zone. Huge conservation wins with little to no fanfare.
It's not our style to kind of, jump up and down about what we're doing. It's really just more important to us that the land is preserved in perpetuity.
But don't underestimate the shrinking violet. The nonprofit is worth more than $320 million, according to tax documents. Leading conservationist Blaine Phillips said they have literally reached out and touched almost every corner of the state. In addition to the Conservation Fund, Mount Cuba also partners with groups like the Nature Conservancy, the Brandywine Conservancy, Delaware Wildlands, and the state of Delaware. And joining me now is Larry Nagengast, who wrote the Partner Story in Delaware Today magazine. Larry, thanks so much for being here.
Glad to be here today.
You spoke with people from those organizations in your article. Were they all sort of saying the same thing about Mount Cuba's role in conservation?
Yes, they are pretty much in agreement. Mount Cuba has worked pretty much under the radar for maybe the last 10 years, providing funds and assisting in the purchase of properties for conservation purposes.
Mm-hmm. The DuPonts are known for being charitable. I mean, that's their reputation. But how is the Mount Cuba Center, the foundation, different from other foundations affiliated with the DuPonts?
Well, when you think about DuPont family-related foundations, you first think of welfare and Longwood, actually Longwood being the larger of those two. Mount Cuba is actually second to Longwood in terms of its size, its dollar value. However, Longwood is one which supports the operations of nonprofit organizations, whereas Mount Cuba does not do that. Mount Cuba is almost exclusively in its philanthropy working with other organizations to acquire or assist in the acquisition of land for conservation purposes, so that it is kept in its natural state forever.
And what are they looking for in the land?
Well, they're looking for things like size, and they're looking for contiguity. The larger the parcel, the easier it is for it to be preserved, and they like it to be contiguous to other parcels that have been preserved or are in the process of preservation.
Okay, really big contributors to conservation in our state.
Absolutely.
All right, Larry Nagengast, thank you so much. And you can read Larry's article about the Mount Cuba Center at DelawareToday.com.
Milford is a very unique town. It sits along the Mispillion River and counts both Kent and Sussex County as home. It's also home to a very diverse community. To celebrate that diversity, a group of volunteers and artists have been working on a mural project to welcome residents and visitors alike to the town. First Experience visited Milford to see how the mural is coming along and to meet the artists behind it.
We decided to call the project the We Are Milford Mural Project. The slogan of the city is Rivertown, Art Town, Hometown. And so we really thought a mural was a way to sort of highlight that and to bring focus on the diversity within our community.
10 years ago, the population was a lot different. We want to show the different cultures and things like that. We want to bring everybody together. It's a small town. Nowadays, obviously, just with the exchange of culture and technology and everything, it's starting to mingle and intertwine everybody's culture, and everybody's starting to get along a lot more.
In this little town, because it's not too big, it's a small city, so we got people from many countries. So I'm from Mexico. The Mexican artists, we use bright colors, and they said we need somebody to do bright colors, on the mural.
The project is just a collaboration of different artists, and we want to show that in Milford there's a lot of multicultural history here.
These artists are being paid very, very little. They're going to do probably over 100 hours of work, and they're just always positive, really excited. The quality of work that they do is incredible. People are really excited about the whole project, which has been great.
We want to make the city more beautiful. When you add the community together with all the different cultures and everything, when you love where you live, you want something to stand out. It's a part of you.
It's been a great process. It definitely took a very collaborative effort. I feel like it's all coming together very well. I think everybody's going to get that welcoming feeling of it's an art town. This is an inviting place.
Probably the next 20, 30, 40 years, that mirror is going to be there. So maybe your children, grandchildren, they're going to be watching, that mirror, right there, and say, oh my God, my granddad, he did that thing. So that's a signature right there. So that's going to be very exciting.
I hope that, 40 years it's still up. I would feel really proud to have been a part of it because it has taken so much time and work and effort. It signifies that people value their community. Seeing that gives a city a sense of place. Others in their town have worked on something and helped create the way that the downtown looks.
It's an honor. I definitely feel privileged and blessed, to be a part of the project. There's a lot of artists that I respect. To be chosen feels good. I just feel very blessed.
I paint because that's my passion. I don't do this for money, for anything else. I just do it because I love it. This is not my full-time job. I'm just doing this because, I love arts.
It makes me feel excited and proud. And when you see all the different shades of people and nationalities and background, art brings people together.
I think it's going to be absolutely beautiful to see, and I hope it tells a little bit about the city of Milford, the river, and the community, and also that we value, diversity, and that we continue to value those differences going forward.
The finished mural consists of 9 panels measuring 24 by 12 feet. It was painted on marine-grade plywood. 6 students from Milford High School also helped the artist in creating the mural. The official unveiling of the mural, which is located on the side of Arena's restaurant in downtown Milford, will be held on Sunday, April 10th from 3 to 5 p.m. You can get more information on the web at downtownmilford.org.
Coming up next week on First, think being on television is easy? Well, check out these Smyrna kids who can show us professionals a thing or two. And Delaware lawmakers want to control the use of plastic bags. We'll report on what they have in mind.
And those stories and more next week. That is First for this week. We thank you for watching. For Nichelle Polston, Mark Eichman, and Todd Bookman, I'm Shirley Min. Have a great week.